Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization. Let's go to the podcast. Paul Worsfold, welcome to Paul Worsfold, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Paul.
I screwed up the opening. You made me flustered. I love it.
Well, you've only had 67 times to practice.
That's it. I have 67 times. I'm leaving that in, just to show this is for the people. It's real. It's great to talk to you. We were just, before we started, we were talking about, we were in the same beast company. You were in D4, I was in C4. So I definitely remember hanging out with you or just walking briskly down the hallways with you many, many years ago. So here we are once again.
Well, and D4 was Go Dukes, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I have paid homage to John Wayne and a recent project that I'm doing out here. So
that's right. We'll earmark that for a conversation because you shared some of that with me as well. That's fascinating. So you are from Peoria, Illinois. This is actually, all good things come out of Peoria, right?
It does play in Peoria. And if it does, it's good. Actually, I went to grew up there, and in the same high school called Woodruff High School, was another one of our classmates. We both went at the same time, and that was Jill Schertz.
Jill, right.
Yeah, so
she was in my company. Yeah.
That's right. And she's done fantastic things.
She has.
And so, we graduated the same high school, and that was it.
And what was your approach to life in high school? Were you an academic? Were you an athlete? What interested you as a high schooler?
Probably a little bit of both, right? And I think that's why most of us get into this school, right?
Sure.
So I did pretty well with grades and the likes.
Right.
And then I was on most of our, from track, JV football, soccer all 4 years. I was also involved in Boy Scouts a lot, so I'm an Eagle Scout, so I did that on the outside.
Oh, there you go.
And also started working at the age of 14. So kind of took liberty with my age. And so I worked at the Peoria Park District, cleaning public restrooms. It was my job up until about the age of 17. So not a very glamorous job, I can assure you.
Yeah, but not afraid of hard work early in life. Good for you.
No.
Yeah.
I had my mom and dad. My mom's a nurse.
Uh-huh.
My dad was a kind of a truck driver and then worked for waste management, hauling garbage for about 40 years. So very blue collar, very hardworking man. So
yeah. Well, then the Army seemed like a good opportunity. What got you interested in West Point? Did you?
So it's funny. There's I do remember the name of the liaison. His name was Walker Flint. I think it was class of 64.
Okay.
And I maybe because of Scouts, right? You have all that service to country and all that. And I will say that, my parents were not involved in the military, but my great grandfather was actually killed in World War I at the Battle of Verdun. And in my office at home, I have all of his medals and an actual typewriter. Back then on the field, they would type up the commendation. And so I still have that on the original typewriter paper and the typewriter font where he was given his award. And of course, in England, it's the Victoria Cross is their highest. And right below that is what he received, King George's Medal and many others. But he basically, during an attack in the trenches, he went out. A bunch of his troops got lost. He was a sergeant, and he went out to kind of place them back towards their trench because once all the fog and everything's going on, they didn't know where everybody was running.
Yeah.
But by doing so, he exposed himself to mustard gas, and then he ended up succumbing to that not long after.
Okay.
So so there's a little bit of family history of that, but.
And which army was he in? Was he in the English Army?
That's right. Yeah.
Got it.
And then my grandfather was in what they called the Home Guard. So in World War II, if your job was of such importance that they didn't want you to go in the military. So my parents and my grandparents were all coal miners. So which England does have coal mines, and that's what they did. And of course, it was very important that they had coal. So they made certain the miners all stayed there. That even though he wanted to enlist, they would not take him. So he was the Home Guard in case they ever got invaded. But that's what they did. And I grew up a good part of my childhood going back and forth between England and Peoria, Illinois.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. And then which generation was it, your father's generation that came over?
That's right. My dad was 18. So we grew up in a very, very small uh, village, really, in England,
Yeah.
where they had their own dialect, a lot of gypsies.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like southwest England towards Wales. And he and my mom had known one another forever. They were kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys a little bit, two large families in this village. And so, but he just yearned for the opportunity that America brought because, he knew that had he stayed in England in this village, life was going to be laid out. He was going to
Yeah.
work in the same mines, doing the same things. And
Mhm.
even today, most of our family that live there, they haven't traveled much.
Right.
It's just a very quaint life. And so he wanted more. He wanted more for his kids. And so they came over here and my mother was pregnant and
Huh.
had me at a very young age. So he
No
ended up
kidding. Okay.
finding a job at Heister's making forklifts. And he
Yeah.
found it in the traditional English way, which he went to the pub and started asking who's hiring. And
But
how can I
it's
get
all
a job?
going back there because all these computers and AI and all that stuff. Pretty soon, that's how people are going to get jobs. They're just going to go down to the local,
The
watering
watering
hole
hole.
and meet
That's
somebody,
it.
and there you go. Never
He
mind the
did.
AI. I'll get you a job. That's great.
Yeah, my dad was an interesting person. And, it's funny because I don't know that he had the greatest affinity for West Point. Not that
Okay.
he didn't. I think in part, I think he was a little disappointed. Part of my decision to go to West Point was because the family didn't have a lot of money and
Yeah.
regular college would have been a strain. And I think that happens to a lot of us. So maybe a little bit he felt that was, something that, he wished, I'd had more choice. But obviously it was mine and it worked out well. He visited West Point a couple times and over the years.
Yeah.
But I was going to say this, and it's an interesting story. So when he came to America, he didn't have anything.
Uh-huh.
And so like most immigrants, he needed to borrow money. So he went to a pub and he basically borrowed money. And from a man named Louis the Shoe. And he borrowed a significant amount of money back in late 1960s. And Louis was there. He said, "Look, yeah, you want money? Here's the money, and
Yeah.
you got 6 months. You come back, and you got to pay it off." And my dad's fine, and he works hard. He gets the money, and of course, when he comes to repay it, it's not the original amount. That amount has ballooned.
Yeah.
And of course, that Dad wasn't really keen on the fine print. There wasn't any.
Well, I imagine
So
Louis the Shoe didn't provide much fine print.
Louis the Shoe was kind of the finance guy for some local entrepreneurs.
Right. Not good with the documentation, old Louis.
Yes, but it's
Yeah.
funny because he ended up squaring with Louis the Shoe's business partners.
Yeah.
He got all that fixed, which is a whole kind of a neat story. But I say this because when I went to West Point, I had a pair of shoes that I kind of pseudo spit shine and I thought I needed to bring them, which I didn't. But anyway, Louis the Shoe was the guy. He was actually a cobbler, so he's the one that got my first shoes all set up. And then every time I'd go back home, I'd always bring my West Point shoes, and he'd put new taps, and he'd help me.
Is that right?
Yeah. So he remained a close friend, even though it was a kind of a strange way to be introduced to him.
It was a strange way to be introduced, but in the end, a good cobbler. You can never underestimate the power of having a good cobbler in life.
No.
That's good.
But yeah, so
that's a terrific story.
yeah, so West Point seemed like a natural, and
Yeah.
and I didn't. I mean, I think I always wanted to serve, but as a young kid, I always played Army. I always had those things that I think a lot
Sure.
of kids do, but mine was definitely strong that way. So yeah, so I went at the same time Jill Schertz did, and a bunch of other local Peoria folks. But what a fantastic! You just don't realize until later in life the blessings of having gone to that school. And I will tell you,
Absolutely.
I always tell this to folks that ask me about West Point, and I kind of throw it into two buckets. Those that thrive, they wake up and they just want it, and then those that survive.
Hmm.
I was kind of the survived crowd, right? I
Sure.
went there, I got through my 4 years, but I wasn't drinking. I just, I did what I could. Um, so you don't always appreciate that at a younger age, but boy, now look back, I have so much pride in the group of folks in the class '86. I often talk to people that I meet about, my company mates and the people that went to school and the things they have done. It's just nothing short of incredible, right? So to be a
Yeah.
part of that's really, really neat.
And you've contributed to the story because you've done well for yourself. And
Yeah.
let's take it back through a little bit of so D4, the Fourth Regiment. That end of the Fourth Regiment was a little saber toothed because I was one company over from you. How did you handle it? You were there for all the right reasons, but how did the plebe life hit you? You said you were a survivor, but talk a little about
Yeah,
that.
I think plebe year was fine. I was one of those guys that did what I had to do and tried to keep a
Yeah.
low profile. I only had a couple of demerits in my entire 4 years. So I try not to rock the
I
boat.
think you and I approached the thing similarly. I
Yeah,
even remember we we kept our mouths shut and we were the ones roaring down the hall, not saying a word.
yeah. I come to realize that I didn't need a lot of attention. My
Yeah, yeah,
roommates there were Rob Dowse and Rick
yeah,
Higley, and also Tom Eccles and Mike
yeah,
Garcia,
yeah,
which
yeah,
all of those have gone on to have very great careers.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, and I loved the Dukes. It was great. Yeah, and I thought it made in hindsight it made sense to shuffle us, right? Do your
yeah.
first year there, then go somewhere else. I like that. Found myself in D1, of course, as an upperclassman. First reg was a little bit better. I think as a plebe it would have been more daunting, but found myself in D1, which is Go Ducks.
Yeah.
Um, and what a fantastic group of people there. And my roommates in D1 included, not all of them, but Joe Mayer, Mike Gwynn, Bill Creedon, Dean Dorman,
Dino, yeah.
and Fred Collier, and
Okay.
certainly others. But there was, yeah, so kind of a mix of folks. And
And
um,
then so when you landed in D1, did they treat you well over there because some of the first reg companies, even as a yearling, you caught a little
yeah,
guff.
no, I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
They weren't really, I mean, I thought that was good. I love D1. I mean, who couldn't love how close you were to all the classes and everything else? I,
That was
I can't
nice.
imagine the guys in the lost 50s. Oh my God, to
Having
be
to
an
hump all the way
upperclassman
over there
out
with
there.
on the
Oh,
Saturdays, we had the big book stack
oh,
that you had to
you
carry.
kill me. So I love being a D1.
Right.
Actually, back in the days where you put your milk cartons out on the window ledges and things like that to keep them cold. But the nice thing about being D1 right there in old Pershing is that Cullum Road was right there,
Right.
and so we could look out. And long story short, so I met my wife Christina first a year, and so she
Really?
basically took my car, and and it was a huge Pontiac Granville. It was everyone else had these sports cars. I
Right.
bought a car for $900. It was massive. I could put about 14 people in it, and so I let her keep it. We met basically the first weekend of first year. But I say all that because we could yell to one another and visit a little bit, even after everyone had to go back to the rooms.
Yeah.
I could talk, you know, from our room right out to the street, so she would come and visit. And so
Was she going to school there locally? What was her story?
Mount St. Mary's. So she
Okay.
was a couple years behind us, a
All right.
nursing student, and that's where I met her. First a year, I went out to a party at Mount St. Mary's into the dorms, and um, strategically, I like to tell people. So I decided to volunteer to be the keg attendant. So I would pour all the beers.
Clever.
That way I
You,
knew I'd see all the ladies because everybody'd come by. They had to get a beer. I'd be the one pouring. So I did that.
you always were a thinker,
So
right?
I talked to her and met her. And we actually talked for a couple hours that evening. In fact, she
Yeah.
told her roommate that night she was going to marry him.
Oh,
So
there
it was
you go.
truly love at first sight. And yeah, we were smitten in all of first year. And a couple of years later, she graduated. And then as soon as she
Okay.
graduated, she moved up to Fort Knox and we got married and we
That's
did that.
great.
So, in fact, one night, as a quick story, and Craig Collier will remember this, we're firsties. He's the company commander. I'm the XO.
Right.
And they do, like they did the penny raids or whatever. All the girls would come in from Mount St. Mary's, right? And they would dress in all these gray sweats, so they look like cadets just running around. So she ran into my room with Craig there, and it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night. We're both like, you're not supposed to be here. So I don't want to get in trouble. So she does that. She runs around the room or something, and then she gives me a kiss. And then I said, you need to go give Craig a kiss too. So we're both in this just as deep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Boy, that Cullum Road really gave you some benefits. I didn't over at MacArthur Barracks. We didn't get the
Dean's wife, Mary Beth.
Yeah,
they've known probably since high school or beyond. Also visited us quite often. So
man, you guys had a program over there. Good for you.
Yeah, it was easier to do that. But yeah, so great. I didn't do as far as West Point itself. Like I said, I graduated kind of in the middle. Civil engineering and engineering management, which was a tough major because it was the first year that they were kind of doing a dual major.
Right.
So I think they overloaded a little bit more than they should have.
And what was it about engineering? Was that always an interest?
I had always, civil engineering, building things was just me. From Legos to Tinker, whatever it was. I just loved to build things with my hand. And so civil engineering made sense. And so that's kind of how we went down that road. And
then were you just part of the marching corps and you played murals?
One of the regulars. I was on Scoutmasters Council and a couple clubs type of stuff. I tried out for JV football first year and soccer. And was able to join both, but my grades didn't appreciate it. And so at the end of first year,
a lot of work.
I was pretty close. I think I was put on academic probation at the end of first in plebe year, and then I okay, I can't do both. So once I got rid of that, and then last year I was actually for the first time I made the dean's list. So that was my crowning accomplishment.
Your crowning achievement.
Academically, is I made the dean's list I think once. So.
Well, you beat me on that one, so good for you.
That was that. But what a great group of people! I know every company's this way, and every company will say it, but I will tell you that the D1 was exceptionally close. Has always been. When we go to reunions, we have text websites or text messaging. Every day we message one another all the time. I think there's 4 or 5 of us that are going to the Scotland trip. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping pretty tight.
I know Dean lives there nearby, and that helps keep the contact. Is he one of the rusticators that gets you all together, or how does that work for you guys keeping together?
Dean's exceptionally busy. I don't think that. I think so. In our class, at least D1, one of the has done very good. Tom Wojtek. Tom does a very good job, and he'd be a great story. I don't know if you've done that, but of course, one of our classmates donated a kidney.
How about that?
So he, you talk about, and it was a classmate you didn't really know, right? So here's a classmate helping a guy with a kidney. You need to get that story. And I think it was Matt Stanton, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? Okay.
So, wow. Yeah, just in the last couple of years. So Tom does a lot of that, but now we've got a Kristen French. She's very good about keeping things together. And there's 19 of us on it, and we all kind of talk.
When you say on it, you have a list that you text each other with.
Yeah, just a text thread that we're all on, and
that's
every
great.
Time, something happens, new baby, somebody goes to a game, or it could be anything.
That's really terrific. Good for you guys.
Yeah, but so it was great. So we graduated. I had my.
Now, why armor? So we always have to get all you tankers. We have to get the story because there's no real logic of why people go armor. Some people hit their head on a tank hatch and swear they're never going to do it. Others hit their head and say, "I had a vision." So what was it about armor that you?
So
attract?
I can show you from a little kid how I was exceptionally involved with tanks.
Right.
I had models of all tanks. I had drawings of all tanks. I used to we made a tank out of plywood and stuff growing up. So
Yeah.
I was geared. I was geared that way. Of course, my Fort Knox experience there as a cadet kind of helped seal it. My
Yeah.
grades were good. I mean, okay. I wasn't going to become a pilot or a doctor right out of school, but armor was I was able to get armor.
Yeah.
Wasn't the keenest fan of walking, and I will say that there is something about the combat armor decision that's been with me my whole life. That is, like Patton says, lead follower, get the hell out of the way,
Right.
right? And that's kind of been me. I don't get lost in the sauce on a lot of things. Just make a decision. Let's go, right? I'm 80-90%
Yeah.
there. Let's not just kill ourselves over the last 5%. And even though,
So
all
you
of us
were armor all in from making a
at
plywood tank as a kid all the way. That was
a
it.
young
You were
age. Oh yeah, I've still saved the little passports that we had. My brothers and I had to show to get across country boundaries in Europe, and I mean we were deep into Army play.
okay.
Yep.
That's great. All right.
So yeah, so armor and end up staying at Fort Knox.
Okay.
In part because the grades weren't the highest, but also because it was the closest thing to Peoria, Illinois. So it was
Right.
close to home, and it
So
was just
so Fort Knox was your assignment.
yeah. So I went basic
I
and I
got it.
stayed there. And I stayed there all 5 years.
What did they have there? Because I don't know. They have a
So they had 573 armor, which was M68A3s at first, and
okay.
then that transitioned over to the 10th Cavalry. So I
Huh.
was a Buffalo soldier, and with the first of the 10th Cav.
Yeah, really.
And so, if you're a tanker, Fort Knox is kind of a good place to be.
Sure.
It's everything tanks, from training to doctrine to you name it, right?
Right.
And then, of course, we did a lot of travel. I mean, I bet I spent half the year away from Fort Knox. I mean, we were always at NTC, Fort Bliss, Reforger. So I think from that perspective, I probably traveled more than a lot of our other armor officer kind of
Sure.
cadre, because I was going all over places. I was a platoon leader at the beginning, and I was a support platoon leader, beans, bullets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Last assignment was headquarters company executive officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on, the company commander went on to Cast Cube or something. So I was there, company command for 3 months.
Oh wow,
as
good for
a
you.
first lieutenant, which was
Yeah.
So, and then I put my paperwork in to leave the service, and I put it in, I think, a month before Desert Storm all unfolded. And so, once I did that, because all I had done in my entire armor officer career was tank operations in desert warfare. That's all I'd done. Fort Bliss, NTC. I'd only practiced for that. The bags were always packed. We were attached to the 82nd. I just knew when this happened, I was ready to go.
Yep.
And they said, "No, Captain Worsfold." I'd been assigned to a group there called DARPA. I think everybody's familiar with DARPA, the defense head, right? So Fort Knox has a DARPA branch or whatever. And I was assigned to that. And it was a program
No kidding.
specifically for that General Schwarzkamp was, kind of shepherding. And because I told him, I said, well, look, this is all I've ever done. My troops are always, can I just go back? And I want to go over there, of course. And they're like, no, you've been assigned this program, and this takes all precedent, and you have to stay there. And it was exceptionally interesting. And for a background in IT, you might have it. But we had a thing called SIMNET. So SIMNET was right? Well, that started all in Fort Knox.
No kidding.
And so we would have simulators in a very secure location at Fort Knox. And I mean, it looked like something out of Indiana Jones.
Right.
It was as long as the eye could see simulators. Hundreds of tank simulators, Cobra simulators, fighter plane simulators. They actually had simulators that they could put wires on infantry guys,
Right.
and so when they would run through
No kidding.
the virtual world. Today, this is all common, right? Call of Duty, you see it all makes sense, right? 40 years ago, this was cutting edge.
Well, people think they invented all these ideas now. We had the ideas, we just didn't have the technology.
Right.
So
Well,
I mean,
the first
we
technology
were
was
setting up a virtual reality simulator to simulate combat for training
right,
back in 1991, right?
and that was DARPA. So
That was
DARPA was doing all of this stuff,
right,
and we would, and they downloaded all of the real terrain from the Middle East, right? All the
right.
Kuwait, all the roads, and Force Comp mission was very, and so I had no experience being a simulator guy, but I was a good armor officer, and they said, look, you've done a lot of this. We want you to simulate taking American forces up the highway of death this way. That we for 6 months, all we did was run 100 different scenarios. So the whole
Really?
purpose of this, and that's what led Schwarzkopf to his decision on how to attack, because we would go against Op 4 forces that were based out of Germany. So they
No
had a bunch of
kidding.
simulators in Germany, and we would fight all these fake battles night and day, and they put real life like logistics information into the simulators.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
how fast would they really? So he could simulate what this battle would look like as good as he possibly could, right?
Right.
And we did that for 6 months, and they
And they were collecting the data on what you guys were doing
to see
to
which
just,
avenue produced the fewest number of casualties.
no kidding. That is
And
so
that's how they
interesting.
decided to do this. And so that was my role in all of this. We had Disney come down and spent a couple months with us. So Disney took all that, and they went back to Orlando and created this ride at Disney called Body Wars, where it was one of the first things where you would sit in this chair and it would rock you back and forth. And then the big screen on the front, you would pretend
Yeah.
like you're going through. That was all based off of this DARPA SIMNET stuff.
No
So
kidding.
it was a really neat job for a year. And so I saw Desert Storm kind of from the sidelines, had my little role in it. That's what we did.
Yeah, but you saw but a pretty important role. Those
Yeah,
of us who
no.
went over there and sat in
Yeah.
tents and trailers weren't contributing to the decision cycles like that. That is amazing. What a story.
It
That's
was.
that's amazing.
In hindsight, you realize just the gravity of what we were all involved in.
Well, the contribution to the decision making was astonishing, right? The ability to do that was amazing.
He came down. We spoke to him in person. I mean, and the other thing we did, so we did that all in the confines of our safe homes here at Fort Knox
Yeah,
and near Grafenbeer. But then we also it was called Operation, I think it was Odin. It was classified until not too long ago. And they also took all these SIMNET stuff and started to put it on semi-trailers. And the thought was, we want to even be faster, we want to put these computer simulators in a bunch of semis and then bring them out to the desert. So you guys could practice, the real guys who are in theater right there, they could get in the simulator just like a pilot does, and I'll know exactly where the road is. The problem is when we got them all shipped over there, right, between the heat and the roads, nothing ever worked.
Nothing worked. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my contribution.
That's a cool story.
I love the military, right? There's a lot of great things that came out of it. And I love being an armor officer. And I got out.
You were thinking about getting out prior to that experience, and then obviously you got out just after. What was your head on staying in, getting out? Kind of what was the thought process?
I think the Army kind of helped me get my head out, getting out. So and the reason
they
being
did everything in their power.
Well, look, they said you did a good job as a lieutenant. We'd like you to captain, and they were talking about company command in Korea. Yeah, and that's a tough haul, right? Newborn, wife.
Yeah, you were just 2 years in. You were married. You had a newborn.
And so, and if you remember right, the Army flirted for a very brief time with a CONUS-OCONUS rotation, and their thought was, we're going to send, okay, Paul, we're going to send you to Korea, and you're going to go, and that's going to be it. You're overseas. You're always going to go to Korea, and then you're going to come back kind of the same place in the United States, and then you'll have these two rotating places, because then you can be an expert in all things Korea. Like if it ever happens, and you'll be an expert here back at Fort Knox. You can get kind of similar. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I can't go the next 15 years in Korea back and forth. This is
Can you
just
pick
not,
the other end to be more fun?
well, it just wasn't good for the family. And so I told him, no, I was going to do that. And then, so I decided to, turn in my notice. And
Yeah.
And then I think it was Cameron Brooks, right? We were all deciding what to do.
Yeah, Cameron Brooks.
And I had a couple guys that I kind of did the same thing, all operations, right? From International Paper to Texas Instruments. They all wanted you to run some kind of a line or assembly line or do something, right? And then I had a bunch of guys that said, well, have you ever thought about pharmaceutical sales? And of course, sales was the farthest thing from
it was a new thing back then, right?
Yeah, I was a civil engineer. I had nothing to do, but the money, $37,000, was a little bit better than average, and I thought it was interesting. And I actually wanted to become a doctor. So I really had, at that point, thought I would like to go into medicine. My wife was an ICU nurse at the time.
Okay.
And so I was like, this would be a great chance to go in and see what being a doctor's like, right? Go do pharmaceutical sales. And that's why I did it.
Okay.
Pfizer hired me. And I mean, it was right after Desert Storm. They hired a sales force of 600 people. I would say 550 of the 600 were all JMOs.
Yeah.
It was crazy, right? I mean, I wrote some of them down. Scott Verhoeven, Mark Whalen, Ted Moran. There were like 8 of us that were all at Pfizer.
Well, the Cameron Brooks recruitment event was a reunion.
It was.
Because we all knew each other, right?
It was. And so we did that. And so, I thought that'd be a good opportunity into the world of medicine. Okay. So I joined. I still remember it's a funny story. So I get there August the 12th or something. I can't remember, but there's 10 of us in this new entry class of trainees. Our regional manager walks in, and he was a Vietnam veteran. And so, of course, the boss walks into the room. What do all of us do? We all stand to attention. And there's one civilian lady who's like still sitting down. She has no idea what we're doing. And we're all literally at attention.
What are you guys doing?
And he's like, oh my God, we
really got to take you guys down from 11.
Well, yeah. So it was, but we didn't know. So yeah, that was our introduction.
That's fantastic.
Civilian. So,
didn't even think about it. Everyone just popped to attention. Because that's what you do when the boss walks in.
Yeah, John Strange. And I still remember the interview because he said to me, we're starting this new division, and he had this big map of the entire United States. And he had push pins on all the cities that he needed to rep. And he says, back then, I'm in my suit. I got my little briefcase, and I do the interview, and he hires me right on the spot. He said, Paul, what I want, you know what? I want you to pick a push pin, and you can be anywhere in the United States. Just pick one, and that's where you're going to go. And I said, look, I've been used to being told where to go. I mean, so I don't care. Tell me where. And he goes, well, it's your choice. I said, so what's the most important push pin you have on that map? Mm-hmm. And he said, Durham, North Carolina. I said, well, I guess that's where I'm going. Yeah. It was Duke. So he basically started my career over at Duke University in Chapel Hill. Okay. Became and was there.
Now, how many children did you have? Was it just the one to start with?
At this point, I had one toddler. Okay. At that time, I joined Pfizer and as a rep, and then I go through the hospital rep, and I kind of go up to becoming middle management. We had a second. So my son was born at Fort Knox. Okay. I like that story because he cost me $8, and the only reason he cost me $8 is because I splurged and treated my wife and I to a steak dinner that night, and it was $4 each. So so
very thoughtful guy.
It was, and so and then in North Carolina, I had a daughter who was born, Melissa, and then we got promoted down to Tampa, Florida.
And now your wife met at the academy 2 years afterwards. You got married. How did she view this, like Fort Knox, and was she just pretty flexible because of her career, or did she have where was her head in all this?
So I think she was blissfully ignorant about all of it, right? Sure. She grew up in Long Island. I could probably bring her over here. She could tell you.
Yeah, right. No, it's more curious.
Yeah, give you her. But she grew up in Long Island, very close family, had never gone too far away.
Yeah.
But she knew that this is what was going to be. And we were love, and
Yeah.
we found ourselves in Fort Knox in a very modest little brick,
Yeah.
building, and we didn't know any better, right? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and
Right. Right.
it was fine. I will say our son was colic, and of course I was gone to MTC and probably the majority of the first year. She was a
Right.
nurse at the ICU down in Elizabethtown, and she had it rough because
Yeah.
she would end up working nights a lot, and then come home to a baby that had colic, and we had babysitters, and when I was home I would do my best, but it
Yeah.
was a full pull,
Right.
and so we didn't have family even close. We had the Army family, and we relied a
Right.
lot
Right.
on that, but it was a tough road, and I think she would have stayed as a career, but I don't think she argued too much, thinking that we can go be civilians somewhere and doing something else too. So, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, I've talked to some classmates whose spouse at the moment where they're really thinking about getting out, the spouse would actually say, "Hang in there, because I know you better than you know you." Just kind of little interesting
Yeah,
little points. But she was hanging in there. But did she like the transition to North Carolina?
I think so.
Yeah.
She got a job right away. We
Good.
had a night. We actually bought a house. I remembering the anxiety at paying $108,000. I'm like going into it.
It's
I'm
amazing.
not
Yeah.
going to spend more than $100,000 on a house. Principal. I'm not going to do it.
Not
Back
like
then,
it was back in
108.
Peoria.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Right.
what am I doing? I have no business buying $100,000 house, right?
Right.
So
Who did I think? Yeah, that's funny.
it's all full circle. So yeah, a nice little home.
Then a promotion to Florida, so you took
Yeah,
to it.
yeah, and it made sense because at the time her parents had then pseudo retired down near Tampa, so
Okay.
that really excited her, right? She could be close to her parents. We have 2 kids at the time, so we come down here. We're only an hour and a half from her parents. So I do well here for a couple of years. I get promoted to Atlanta, Georgia. It was a
Yeah.
very short stint of only a year, but our third child was born up in Alpharetta,
Okay.
Georgia. I was there for a year, and then I was able to come back as start my management career in Tampa again, where we had just come. And so it was convenient. We ended up moving back to the same neighborhood, had the same friends. The kids went back to the same schools,
Okay.
and then I stayed there as a Pfizer manager for 12 years.
And you're in Tampa now, right? If I read Facebook
That's right.
correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right
So
outside of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those places, Florida, that everybody goes there for vacation, and then you come to realize, well, if we go there for vacation, why don't we just live there?
Why don't we just live there? Shorten the loop.
It's a beautiful place. I mean, Denver's a beautiful place too.
It is.
I had as I went through, after Pfizer, 19 years, basically, as a
19
free
years.
agent.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing though. 19 years with a company, right? So if you think
I
about
would have stayed there. Yeah.
retiring at 20 years in the military, you actually spent the near just shy of the equivalent of that at one company, which is astonishing.
and it paid well. And
Yeah.
the loyalty of West Pointers. I'd have stayed there probably my whole life, right?
Sure.
And like Ted Moran, I think is still there, right? I mean, a lot of these guys are still there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But God had a different plan, and he says, they used to do this every Christmas. The week before Christmas, they lay off thousands, and
Right.
and that's what would happen. And so, but he had a plan, and so I went from there to BMS for a short stint, and then from there to UCB and just pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I mean, so those are all so on your list of your LinkedIn list. It's all those are all pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah,
What
almost
is
all pharmaceuticals.
You
And
had
what
a job that was
happened?
called a diplomat. What was that?
Yeah. So what happened in the pharmaceuticals?
Right.
I end up as I got out of management and went a little higher. I became like a national account manager for just federal accounts. So in other words,
Okay.
for Biogen, for these accounts, for these big companies, I would be responsible for all our federal sales, all sales at
Okay. So
military bases, the VA, right, federal prisons.
That's not you sitting in a waiting room in, Barstow, California, waiting for the doc. That's a different level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now but
Just so we're clear on that.
Yes. So
Right.
I loved it because I just loved being on the road and visit, especially in the military bases in the VAs. So I've been to pretty much every military base in the country. I've been to every VA in the country.
Is
I've
that
seen all
right?
50 states. I've been all over because I'd go there. I'd talk to the pharmacist and the doctors and try to, get them to use our medicines or
Sure.
price things or do things. And so there's a lot of travel. I mean, I remember in my last 10 years of doing that, I think I lived in a Marriott for about 4.5 years.
Yeah, right.
So
Right.
not the easiest, but it paid well and I got to see things. And I felt like I was in a group of people that I knew, right? Veterans and military people. So I really enjoyed that. And then I found myself hooked to a senior manager and Mike Flowers, a colonel, Marine colonel.
Uh-huh.
And he in the reserves, and every time he would leave and get promoted to someplace, and then he'd call me about 3 months later and said, Paul, I want you to come.
It's time.
And he'd give me the package, and I'm like, sounds good. And we did that 5 times. So he made 5
That's
jumps
amazing.
for the company,
Yeah.
and he just kept dragging me everywhere.
Yeah.
And Diplomat was one of them. Diplomat was a company owned by a single individual out of Flint, Michigan. So I spent several years in Flint, Michigan. And it was a pharmacy company that provided specialty medicine. In the world of pharmaceuticals, you have drugs that you take for hypertension or whatever. But then there's these pretty fancy drugs that for rheumatoid arthritis or cancers that are $50, $100, $200,000, for these medicines. This company pretty much helped manage those types of drugs. But they brought me on board because they had no business really with the federal government. And they wanted me to say, look, can you get us into the federal government and help us?
But by that time, you had created a specialty for yourself because
That's right.
There's a select few people that knew those corridors and how to work them effectively.
It was. I found a niche, and it treated me well, and I kind of knew where I was. And it's a great niche, right? Because I branded myself in these pharmaceutical companies. I'd go to all the meetings. I'd have these like little outfits that looked like I was a military guy, I gave out, I'd always salute people. It was just fun, right? I'd yell hoorah all the time. And the young sales reps, man, they just ate it up. They loved it. All this stuff. I would give out challenge coins, and they would be like, what is all this? They would just love
That's great.
Yeah. In fact, it was funny. So I won an award at Biogen. And not that I'm all that, but I say that because at the end during this, they give out these awards. And when they gave me mine, the entire 2,000 people, only one, they did a standing ovation. In part because they had seen me go, I'd probably been with most of these people in the field. I mean, I lived out there. I was kind of a servant leader, and they saw that. And I still remember a very senior person at Biogen after that saying, you do realize that short of killing someone, we'll never be able to fire you. No, we have, in 17 years, I've never seen anyone get a standing ovation. So
that's great.
That was kind of, I say that because when you say you got a niche, that's when you know you got a niche, right? You kind of made an impact. Everybody kind of knows that.
Yeah, good for you.
And so that was
terrific.
It. And I didn't want to leave, but this Mike Flowers said, I got to, again, it was just.
On the next one. Now, what was his role when he'd go to these places? Mike Flowers.
So Mike, at that point, he was a vice president of sales.
And so he gave you a portion of his thing.
Yeah. So we want to bring you on board as a vice president for, federal, federal government type stuff. I said, okay,
well, Mike's a smart guy. He knows smart person. He knows how to bring his team together, and he knows what works. And it works for both of you, right?
I was making him a lot of money, so it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
So we did well together. I still keep in close contact. He's one of my best friends. And then Diplomat ended up going bankrupt, and so Optum ended up buying him. So I worked for Optum for just a very short period of time.
Okay.
And then I had so when you think about Pfizer's hundreds of thousands of people. And I kept going, smaller pharmaceuticals. And then Diplomat was only 5,000. It's smaller. I kept working my way down to smaller companies. And Heritage was a very small company, 60 people. And they wanted me to basically, same thing, help us get into federal sales and do stuff, and also business development. But it's funny, when I got there on basically the second day of the company, I was asked to help develop a new company for substance misuse and abuse and suicidal ideation. I knew nothing about this. I had no training for it. But one of the second senior guy at this company was a recovering alcoholic. And he wanted to start this. And so we started from scratch, a company called U-Turn, which is still out there and still trying to make a run of it.
Right.
With a very unique model of basically by being a life coach to those that needed help, right? And so I spent 2 years going around the country trying to get employers and the federal government and others to sign up for our services. So, for example, we would, for prisons, right, when a prisoner is released, there's not a lot of support for prisoners. And a lot of them had drug and alcohol addiction, right?
Sure.
That's what led them there to. And so we signed contracts with parts of the government or GEO or some of these to say, look, when that guy leaves, we'll actually have counselors reach out to them. They can call anytime, 24/7, if they're having a rough time or if they need things. And it's just kind of a lifeline, right? Because there's just wasn't a lot of support. In fact, all the people we hired were actually convicts. They were inmates at one time. So
right. They knew, they walked a mile in those shoes, right? Yeah.
So we did that. And I got that just where it got to the point where it was profitable and just starting to take off when Heritage is like, look, we've kind of got this. We really don't have an immediate need for you going forward, but something else has happened. At the time, they had been working with a service-disabled veteran-owned small business called Palisade Strategies. And it was developed by Sam Brown. Sam Brown, I think it's class of 95. But he's, and right now, he is head of the Trump appointee for all of our VA cemeteries. But Sam Brown, very interesting individual. So he was in Afghanistan and was hit by an IED. 90% of his body was burnt, 40 different surgeries. He's got a book called The Live Day. Incredible. Well, what happened?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so when he started this company, Heritage was a small company, but when private equity bought them, the veteran who owned Heritage bowed out. And so it was no longer a small, veteran-owned company. And so they partnered with Sam at Palisade so that they could keep winning government contracts that were specific to service disabled.
Right.
And I only say all that because then what happened is Sam had a real interest in politics. That's what he wanted. In fact, he ended up running and lost by like 0.1% to be the next senator for the state of Nevada. So, he had Trump's endorsement and all that. He'll run again. You watch. And he'll be a state senator here pretty soon. And but he could not run for office or run for that and run this company at the same time.
Got it.
So he basically told Heritage, said, look, I can't do both. So you're going to have to find a new veteran to take over. And since I was there and they're like, look, why don't you know this? Why don't you take over his company? And then I did. And so
that's what you're doing now.
And that's what I do now. And it's a boutique business. It's me and one employee. But I have a relationship with Heritage Health Solutions that does a lot of my support.
So all you got to do is go to that employee and say, okay, I'm going to improve our productivity 100%. You need to work twice as hard.
That's it. So
just give a real brief summary of what you do, because you told me off air, but talk about what it does.
A boutique company. And what we do is, so for all the veterans that are listening, right? And so if you go to a CBOC, which is that, clinic-based outpatient facility, and you go see your doctor and you have a chest infection and you need an antibiotic, the doctor can write you a prescription, because right now you need an antibiotic now. The VA can't send it in the mail because it's going to take a week and you need it now. You could go to the VA, which could be 60 or 80 miles away, to pick it up. But that's not convenient. So the CBOCs, the doctors there have these little coupons, and he can write a prescription on it that says, Paul, here's your antibiotic. Go down at Walgreens and you get it filled and get it right away. And so it's emergency. It's for antibiotics. Maybe you ran out of high blood pressure medicine or whatever it is, but you need this medicine now. And what my company does is the veteran takes it down to that Walgreens, the retail pharmacy fills it, and then my company adjudicates all the claims and handles all the payment back
Yeah.
to the Optum who
It's
filled it.
a VA
Another-
enabler of service, basically.
That's right.
Which
And so
is
that's what we do. We have, and it's specifically just the VA. We have about 95% of the market. So we're kind of the 800-pound gorilla in this. This is all we do. I like to think we do a very good job of it, but almost all of our classmates out there, if they ever go to a CBOC and need a medicine, I will thank them because I'll end up getting it billed and getting reimbursed for it. So that's how we make our living. But it is a good way to give back. Originally I thought
a lot of those veterans, the story is a lot of those veterans are unable to travel 80 miles to a VA hospital or wait, right? So it's filling a need. Now, when did you stabilize in Tampa? Because what a dynamic career and different jobs and all that. When did you actually, did your family settle in Tampa as part of this, or is this a recent?
So when I came back at Pfizer and became a manager here, we've stayed here ever since. So all these other companies that I've been to, Flint, Michigan, Boston, Jersey, all these, I've always lived here, and I just commuted back and forth to the district.
So your kids had some stability growing up. I mean, Tampa's home, and
that's it.
Great. And then where have they all? Are they all headed out of Florida, or are you?
No,
your family
we're blessed because I have 3 kids. So Matthew, born in Fort Knox, he works at the VA. He's a VA pharmacist at the Orlando VA. He works in the emergency room in the ICU. So very proud of him. He takes care of our fellow veterans there. I have a daughter, Melissa, who and oh, by the way, so Matthew has 4 daughters. 4 daughters. So I have 4 granddaughters from him. One born just a month ago. And then Melissa is my middle daughter. She does orthopedic surgery. She's a PA in Orlando. So that's about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. They're both there. She just had her first daughter. So I've got a total of 5 granddaughters. And she married a Delta pilot about a year ago. So they're doing very well. And then my youngest, Madison, is 28. She lives at home right now. She's a ultrasound radiosonographer at the country's busiest emergency room, which is in Lakeland, Florida. And so she's got a great career doing all things sonograms, and she's dating a lawyer here in Tampa. So yeah, they're all local. Things are going well.
Good for you.
You just blessed, right? Everybody's happy. They're healthy, and the older you get, that's all I care about. And so a couple of years ago, just to transition out of some of this. So 4 years ago, I live in a community called River Hills, if you look it up. But if you go to the trails of River Hills, look that up. So I oversaw, our community is 1,200 homes, and we have 250 acres of wetlands next to it. And I got county permission, along with some others, but I have spearheaded nature trails. We built 4.2 miles of nature trails that look like a state park, complete with bridges that my civil engineering might help with, but boardwalks. I've been on ABC, CBS, NBC News. It's a big thing that we've built, and it's pretty special. It does. It's a really neat place.
And this is a part of your community.
That's right. It's just a volunteer thing.
What, did they buy that, or is it part of the?
It was part of the community. We didn't really do much with it. But then we turned it into this walking area through the.
Good for you. That's great.
Oh, it's
very valuable.
It's almost magical. It really is neat. In fact, we were just down there looking at doing shark's teeth hunting in the river last weekend. So it's pretty neat. And then I've kind of built what we're going to build there. Now it's just kind of a maintenance, and we've got some other folks who are going to do that.
Right.
And now I've kind of transitioned out of that. My next new project is, when you buy a company and you're running your company, I thought I'd retire at 60 by now, but unfortunately, when you kind of own the company, you have to wait for someone to buy it, or I may be doing this forever. An exit plan doesn't always, but it provides well. And so a couple of years ago, I've been looking for a long time, but I just I've always envied those people that had land or a place that they could have a family retreat, a place where all their kids and everybody could go for the weekend and just kind of hang out and kind of help keep us as a family unit together. And so I found a place real close to Tampa, real close, only 10 miles from our house, that had been owned by the same company since the Civil War. And they finally were selling it. I was literally there at the right time, at the right place, made an offer, and I bought 20 acres of a beautiful place right down here on the Alphi River, and it's pretty secluded. And what I decided to do, it had a house, just a 2,100 square foot home, and I gutted it, I rebuilt it, I put a big deck, and now we've got a place a little home, and we can all get together. But then I've decided that with this, I'm going to make an Old West town. And I think the old saying, "A fool and his money is soon parted," and I'm living that dream right now. But it's a real thing. I mean, it's a saloon.
I have to admit, the source of my delight is you shared the PowerPoint that you shared with your family with me. So your family got a PowerPoint of the Paul's concept. So I'm smiling because I've seen the PowerPoint. It's magnificent. And I might have to cut an image or two into this podcast just so people can see some of these ideas you could talk about. Talk about the Wild West town on 20 acres near Tampa. Go run through some of the ideas.
Yeah. So it's called Hidden Creek, 20 acres. We have about 35 Texas Longhorns on the property. So it looks like it would if you were in Texas. I am building it's about a 5,000 square foot building that has a 2-story saloon in the middle of it, which is kind of, and a big stage. So the girls were out there Thanksgiving, all the granddaughters at Thanksgiving dancing on the stage and doing that. And it's a big stage. And then we've got...
and with the number of granddaughters you have, that's quite a show.
We're going to have a big show. And then we had... I've got a jail. And the jail is a little jail. It's going to be themed as an escape room. So it's really cool. You can escape out the back of the jail through a movable stove that goes onto the stage. I've got bunk beds in the jail. It's all themed pretty legitimate. And there's all hidden doors from one to the next. And then I go into a hotel. It's got two king-size bedrooms, a bathroom. And then the second floor is not themed, but it's all games. It's all things for all these grandbabies. And it's a lot. So pinball and air hockey, all this stuff. So they're going to have a great time, I hope, over the years. And then we've got other buildings. I'm creating a church, a chapel, a white chapel. I've got an old mine. It's going to be some Connex boxes that are going to be covered in dirt. I'm going to make that a theater room. So it'll be completely dark. It'll be a theater room. I've got someone.
That was the beautiful thing about the slides. Is it just kept going. And I was like, at first it's like, oh yeah, what's the Western theme? It's terrific. It's the idea. Some of the ideas are fantastic.
It is. We're going to have an Indian village. We're going to have a hideout. We're going to have, and then if it all
goes, the D1 Ducks ever want to get together for a mini reunion, they have a clear destination in mind.
We're making it to hold 40 people. So I will have enough to house 40 people. And then when this is all done, we're going to do Swiss Family Robinson down in the trees. I've got 3 yurts we're going to put up. And in fact, they're putting a shooting range in right now. So I'm hoping that this will turn into a place where we all get together, just friends and family, no business, just come out and have fun.
Absolutely. It's what a great project. And as we all approach retirement or some lane that comes near to retirement, we all embark upon some of these passion projects. And this is clearly one. It's terrific. I really enjoyed seeing the slides and I appreciate you sharing them. It sounds like it's going to be a really fun project for the family. Now, if you just think about the amount of memories you're going to make there with your grandkids, it's just a tremendous thing.
Well, I hope so, right? I mean, that's why we do it, right? Build it and they will come. And then, look, we've been blessed. All of us been blessed. We've got good health, good friends. So much is going right. This is a part of our legacy, right? Hope to leave this behind and do something. And if they don't use it, we'll sell it, right? I mean, but the reality is, I think this will help keep us all together.
Yeah.
We'll just have fun.
That's terrific.
Who doesn't want to be a cowboy?
Absolutely. What a absolute pleasure reconnecting with you and hearing your stories and just hearing really what a journey you've had. And it's just terrific to reconnect. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing it with us.
Well, thank you, Paul. And I tell you, our class is lucky to have you doing this. Kudos and big bites, as they would say. As you get older, I tell my kids the thing I appreciate more as I get older are pictures. I love seeing old pictures. I see it's the memories, it's the keeping us all together, and what a great role you have in doing that. And I certainly applaud you for doing it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. All right, Paul. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.